Welcome once again to Lehto's Law. Here's Steve Lehto.
This is one of those stories I got from everybody, thank you very much, and it has to do with things we like to talk about here, including police writing tickets and whether or not they've got quotas that require them to do that at a certain rate. But also, here it is, wildlife officers writing tickets for traffic offenses. And this is happening in Utah, of all places. Freeway drivers across Utah getting pulled over by wildlife officers feel they've been targeted by an illegal quota. So that there wraps it all up. Adam Herbitz wrote this for Fox13Now.com. Drivers across Utah are getting sick and tired of being pulled over by pickup trucks driven by wildlife officers. Several have now come forward after watching a news investigation exposing how some game wardens have decided to patrol freeways instead of wildlife areas to help their numbers. See, it turns out they're being asked to write so many tickets every so often. It's not a quota, but try to write this many tickets in this period of time. And by the way, if it's easier to write tickets in traffic, do that instead of going out and doing the wildlife thing. The Utah Division of Wildlife Resources, or the DWR, now asks wildlife officers to document one violation of the law every 23 hours. Officers are graded on the performance goal as part of their annual evaluation. So every 23 hours, they've got to write at least one violation. The police chief in charge of the DWR says that's not an illegal quota because quotas, turns out, are illegal, at least in Utah. He said, we're not increasing crime. We're just better documenting what's occurring. Now, this is a great example of somebody who actually takes something and tries to spin it so hard that he spins it to where it sounds stupid. Did anybody actually accuse them of increasing crime? No. We're not increasing the crime. We're just better documenting what's occurring. We're not increasing the crime. Okay, no one accused you guys of speeding, okay? The Utah Highway Patrol declined to comment on what they thought of the DWR horning in on their action. Police quotas have been illegal in Utah for about 6 years now. Lawmakers passed a bill that year in 2018 specifically targeting departments that require officers to get a certain number of citations or arrests to be doing their jobs. The goal was to stop police from treating drivers and other members of the public like piggy banks. So a man who was pulled over and lives in St. George says, I'm 38 years old. I've never been stopped by a game warden before. I was completely flabbergasted when he told me he stopped me for speeding. So he paid the ticket, even though he didn't say that he did say that he didn't think he was speeding. He said his wife was in the passenger seat, also would back up his story. And he said, when I'm in the wrong, she'll tell me. But in this case, she said, no, that's not right. Something's going on there. Meanwhile, another man was pulled over who lives in Provo 2 months later by the same wildlife officer. Says, I was driving home one night with my cruise control on, and all of a sudden I saw cop lights behind me. I was really confused. I had no idea they were even able to pull you over on the freeway. Because who'd have thought that Fish and Wildlife's pulling you over? Wouldn't it be the police? In both cases, the same officer wrote the ticket, and the man is a DWR canine officer. The records show that since 2021, this officer has written significantly more tickets on the freeway than any other wildlife officer. And so the man who got pulled over there did record the conversation because he said he's upset. At one point, the officer threatened to impound his car because he said that the driver was doing over 100 miles per hour. But eventually he wrote him instead for 90 and a 70 and said, that way I'm not going to impound the vehicle. Now, the man admits that he has sped on occasion, but he's doing about 75 miles an hour that night, which would be 5 over. And he said he was trying to make it worse than it was to make me frightened. Then he was trying to be the good cop by saying, oh, I could have done this and this, but I'm going to lower it for you. So the man's contesting the ticket. Now, here's the interesting part. It turns out that wildlife officers who are out doing their jobs apparently don't have vehicles equipped with radar. Police officers might, but the DWR officers don't. So it comes down to one person's word against the others, because game wardens are not equipped with radars or any other speed detecting equipment in their trucks. Instead, they use their own speedometers and then try to estimate another driver's speed, which is known as pacing. And if you don't know about this, in the old days, before there was radar and all this other stuff, you're driving along and a police officer pulls in behind you. If he can get close enough to you and keep the distance the same for a period of time, he can go, oh, okay, I'm doing 70 right on your bumper, and you're doing 70. You must be doing 70. Okay? The problem, of course, is I've actually heard from people who said that an officer claimed that they were being paced, but they were coming from this way, and they saw someone go by this way, and okay, if you don't have it on radar these days, it's kind of hard to believe. But they can come into court and testify and say, I paced him. I think he was doing that. So now, of course, it's going back and forth. So both of these men that they spoke to who got tickets said they were confused until they saw the reports on Channel 13. And now they say that they feel like they were targeted because of the performance goals, which are not quotas. One of the men said, I have a bright yellow car. I'm 20 years old. It looks sporty. I think he was just looking for another number. A former DWR officer who asked not to be ID'd said it's no longer about catching bad people doing bad things, but doing things in an effort to justify the numbers to meet the quota. So it's a former officer of the DWR saying that it's all about just the numbers, okay? Records show that the DWR traffic stops on freeways have tripled since 2021. Since the performance goal, not a quota. How many times I got to tell you that? It's not a quota. Was implemented. More than half of the traffic stops have been from just 3 DWR officers. Just 3 have written more than half of the tickets. So one of the men says, and I'm talking about one of the guys who got a ticket, to me it seems exactly like a quota. It feels like they're afraid that they're not going to be needed. Maybe they feel like they have to go out and make things up to make it look like they're busier than they really are. Now, the chief says that he does not want officers patrolling the freeways, but he expects them to enforce traffic laws if they spot violations while traveling between wildlife areas. So the chief says they're still supposed to be doing their job. It's just if they happen to see someone breaking another law that they're allowed to write a ticket for, they're supposed to write a ticket. So 3 drivers, including the 2 that were already interviewed here, said they watched the wildlife officer pull over another driver on the freeway immediately after they received their tickets. The 3rd driver asked not to be identified due to fear of police retaliation. He said, one of the guys said, I didn't get half a mile up the road before he had someone else lit up. It really seemed like he was going from car to car. He sat there for a second and he was right on to the next car. I have 100% respect for a lot of officers. It's not an easy job, but I see no reason for the DWR to be on the freeway at 11 o'clock at night. So some drivers who spoke with Fox 13 News admitted they may have been speeding and they deserve tickets, but they're still surprised to see game wardens doubling crime and tripling the traffic stops on the freeway. So again, they're not causing the crime. They're just documenting it. And these aren't quotas. They're just numbers that you have to meet within a certain period of time to be performing your job properly. But that's not a quota. It is not a quota. If you want to be a member of the state police, go ahead and do that, one of the drivers said. You're taking officers away from the mountains when there could be real crime happening. It's not helping me, it's not helping you, and it's not helping the state of Utah. And after the TV station ran their report on this, and apparently it's a multi-part series, several lawmakers have now said they're going to look into this. So again, Utah made quotas for the police illegal. And so the police are doing their job, and suddenly people are getting pulled over and ticketed for speeding by the wildlife folks. Turns out they've got the ability to do that, but they didn't do it a whole lot in the past. Suddenly they're doing it a whole lot because they've been told to, even though it's not a quota. So this is the kind of thing where you look at it and go, okay, this is so painfully transparent. We all know what's happening here. And the fact that it's happening is bad. Will they fix it? I don't know. And it depends on how much of an uproar there is versus how much money they make off of it. Because remember, those tickets generate cash. That cash goes someplace. And quite often, it winds up in the local community's coffers, meaning that it does help out the local people. And so if that makes you look good and you're doing your job and that's what's part of your year-end performance, your review, well, there you go. So again, remember though, it's not a quota. You understand? It doesn't matter what you call it, okay? These are not glasses. Okay, these are not glasses. Really? It's not a quota. Just write this many tickets in this period of time. But it's not a quota. There you go. So what's funny is I've been a lawyer for 33 years. 33 years I've been a lawyer. Even before I was a lawyer, I'd heard about quotas and traffic tickets and so on. And every single time you mention it near a police officer, their ears perk up. They go, no, there's no such thing as quotas. No such thing as quotas. And every now and then, some officer will step out of line and go, yes, we've got quotas. They just don't call them that. They call them performance goals and things like that. And every now and then, a cop will actually come out and say, yeah, we got quotas. Of course we do. But no. They're not quotas. They're not quotas. So despite the fact that there's no such thing as a quota, they've never existed, Utah outlawed them. Okay, well, how about this? If there's no such thing as a quota and we outlaw it, nobody should complain. We're outlawing something that doesn't exist. That's like outlawing unicorns. It won't change anything. Until you get the Department of Wildlife telling their officers to go out and write tickets and write this many tickets, even if it's for speeding as opposed to actual like game offenses out in the woods or something, which is what they're supposed to be doing. So instead of actually fighting poachers and so on, they're writing traffic tickets. So this is just bizarre. But thank you to everybody who sent it to me. Fox13now.com and Adam Herbitz wrote this. It's a great story. It's the kind of story where if you're a reporter, you sink your teeth into this one and you know that people want to see the follow-ups and see what happens. Because how do you defend this by saying we're not increasing the crime and that's not a quota? Oh, okay. Freeway drivers across Utah get pulled over by wildlife officers and they feel targeted by illegal quota. But it's not a quota. Questions or comments, put them below. Otherwise, talk to you later. Bye-bye.
Thank you for watching Lehto's Law. Don't dream it, be it.